the more he will reciprocate. He promises this in Bhagavad Gita and in the Esoteric Teaching, and his promise is as good as gold. So, in my personal experience with the Esoteric Teaching, I have to say that everything that was promised has been true. When we first come into contact with the teaching, we may think, oh, how am I ever going to reach these standards? How am I ever going to give up so many material things that I'm addicted to? How am I ever going to wrap my mind around this philosophy? It's so difficult. It's so high. Well, I'm here to tell you that even though in the beginning I thought the same things, here I am down the road living what we read in the books in the early days. So I can tell you that everything that is promised about the esoteric teaching is actually true. And none of it is promo, none of it is hype. It's all the real thing, if you follow. Now, if you don't follow, if you try to make up your own approach to the esoteric teaching, then nobody can guarantee what the result will be. But if you actually follow according to the instructions, then over time, you will come to embrace all these things and to not only understand, but actually embody them. So this is the power of the esoteric teaching. It goes by the power of God. It runs through the power of time. Time is a very, very powerful force. And if we use time to our advantage, then we can accomplish amazing things. A practical suggestion is take a certain time every day to devote to chanting and meditation. Take a little time every day. Take a place in your home and make it a sacred spot. And go there at the same time every day to meditate. Put a little altar with holy pictures. Make it nice and clean, very simple, but beautiful. And sit there, chant, take your beads in your hand, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or whatever your mantra or prayer is. And contemplate on God and these things that we have spoken. And over time, you will see that your desires for the material world begin to ebb, and your desire for spiritual life begins to grow. It can't be done in a week or two, or even in a year or two, but over a lifetime, one can accomplish great things with regular practice. It's that simple. So, if one establishes regular daily habits of meditation, chanting, study, and contemplation, then over time, the results will be very significant. No one can simply jump from being in the materially conditioned state of consciousness to the state of pure devotional service. Theoretically, it may be possible, but practically we see that it takes years, maybe lifetimes, to change the consciousness to that degree. Why? Because our mind is filled with millions and billions of impressions of material consciousness from a material ontology. To change our standpoint, our viewpoint, our angle of vision on things takes absorbing another millions and millions of impressions based on spiritual consciousness, a spiritual ontology, spiritual understanding and viewpoint on things. And then over time, by the power of time and regular practice, then one gradually advances, and we don't see the results from day to day, or week to week, or even month to month. We see the results over years of time. I can recall going to India, a very sacred and holy place in India, and meeting someone that I had met years earlier when I first joined the esoteric teaching movement. And back then, to tell you the truth, he was a nonsense guy. He was one of those guys who doesn't seem to have any expectations for himself or any ambition, who had never really accomplished anything significant in his life or gotten really good at anything. And I had sort of written him off as someone who would probably fall away from the path over time. Yet, 5 years later, I met him in one of the most sacred places in India, and he was beautiful. He was really right on. He was very advanced. I was impressed. And I asked him, how is it that you have changed so much? I remember you as being a kind of dull-headed guy, you know. I was honest with him. I said, what have you done? What's your secret? What's your attitude? He said 2 things. 1, I followed the instructions of my teachers. And 2, I practiced every day. That's all. He wasn't any different than any of us. He certainly wasn't a sparkling example of a human being from a materialistic point of view. He was just an average guy. But by being submissive to his teachers and by being regular in his habits of devotion and spiritual practice, over years, he became a very good example of a practitioner of the esoteric teaching. So we should take a lesson from this. It's not going to happen by flash. You're not going to get this teaching by being hot or smart or even dedicated. Not in the beginning. It takes time. So settle in. We're here for the long term. That's what it takes to make real spiritual advancement. It's not going to happen in a flash, no matter how hard you try. You can pretend, but that's not the real thing, is it? We're so much used to pretension in this material life. We pretend to be smart, we pretend to be happy, we pretend to be beautiful and popular, all the things that we'd like to be. Well, even if we actually become beautiful and popular and smart, guess what? It's not going to make us happy. Whatever we gain in this material life, we'll lose. We came into this world naked, without any possessions, and we're going to leave this world the same way. That's just the way it is, folks. That's the way Krishna set it up. Why? Because he wants us to ask the questions. He wants us to inquire. He wants us to look under every rock and stone until we finally find the answer. And I can tell you from my own personal experience that the answers are all in this esoteric teaching. The real answers, the ones that last. So I was a rolling stone. I was a musician, an artist. I was a world traveler. I was never staying anywhere more than 3-4 months in the same place. But when I found this esoteric teaching, even though I was still a rolling stone, I had something to anchor my star to. And over the last 30 or 40 years, I've had some remarkable experiences. I've even found my perfect body. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of My Perfect Body. This is David Hughes, your host, reminding you to visit us on the web at esotericteaching.org, where you can purchase the complete Esoteric Teaching Introductory Seminar DVD and many CDs of transcendental music and mantras.